Naji and Obi strode into the palace, passing through corridors lined with towering stone pillars carved with the symbols of the kingdom. The air grew colder, thick with an oppressive energy that seemed to cling to their skin. Shadows flickered in the dim torchlight, and Naji could feel the dark magic woven into every corner of the king's fortress. Obi whispered to Naji as they advanced, "The king's magic will be strongest at the center of his throne room. Remember, our greatest weapon is not just strength, but our connection to the river's power." Naji nodded, his heart pounding as they reached the large double doors leading to the throne room. The doors were covered in intricate carvings of monstrous beasts, creatures twisted and bound by chains, symbols of the king's control over both land and spirit. Obi raised his hand and traced a symbol in the air. The door groaned as if resisting his command, but then slowly opened, revealing the vast, dark hall beyond. Shadows lurked in every corner, their shapes strange and twisted, as if alive with a sinister intent. At the end of the hall, upon a grand elevated throne, sat King Chima. His robes were as black as midnight, shimmering with an unnatural sheen that seemed to absorb the light. His face was cold, unreadable, but his eyes gleamed with malice as they locked onto Naji. "So, the river sends a child and a relic of the past to challenge me?" King Chima's voice was low and mocking. How quaint. Naji held his ground, raising his chin. "Your greed has brought suffering to the people and to the land. You have twisted the river's life force for your own gain, but it ends now. The river god's power flows within me, and I am here to set things right." King Chima smirked, slowly rising from his throne. He extended his arms, and shadows began to gather around him, swirling and solidifying into shapes. Creatures with claws and fangs, beasts of darkness born from his magic. "You think a mere river can defy me?" Chima laughed, his voice booming through the hall. "I'm the king. I command life and death. You are nothing but a foolish child who doesn't understand the power he challenges." But as the king spoke, Naji could feel a surge of energy from deep within. The river's voice whispered in his mind, steady and calm, reminding him of the source of his strength. He took a deep breath, focusing on the river's flow within him, allowing its power to build until he could feel it pulse through his veins. Obi stepped forward, standing by Naji's side. "Power without wisdom is nothing but a curse," Obi said, his voice resonant and steady. "You have enslaved the river, twisted the balance of life, and drained the land for your greed. The time has come for you to face the consequences." The king's face twisted in anger, and with a wave of his hand, he sent the shadow beasts surging toward them. Their forms shifted as they charged, claws slashing, eyes glowing with malice. Naji held his staff high, focusing on the river's energy. He swung it down, and a torrent of water erupted from the floor, forming a barrier around him and Obi. The shadow beasts crashed into the water, their forms sizzling and dissipating as they touched the sacred flow. But the king's magic was relentless, and more beasts continued to emerge from the shadows, each one darker and more twisted than the last. "Do not falter," Obi said, his voice calm but urgent. "The river god's power is within you. Feel it and let it guide you." Naji closed his eyes, grounding himself in the river's energy. He imagined the water flowing through him, calm and unbreakable, its current strong enough to withstand any storm. Slowly, he extended his hands, and the water responded, surging forward to meet the shadow beasts. The creatures shrieked as the water engulfed them, their forms dissolving in the river's sacred flow. But even as they fell, the king's laughter echoed through the hall. "Is this all you have?" King Chima sneered, his eyes gleaming with contempt. "I hold the heart of the river captive. Its power belongs to me." At his words, Naji felt a pang in his chest, a sudden sharp ache that resonated with the river's pain. He realized that the king had bound the river's spirit, twisting its life force to fuel his own dark magic. But Obi's voice broke through his despair. "Do not let his words sway you, Naji. The river god chose you for a reason. Only you can break his chains." Naji took a deep breath, his resolve hardening. He met the king's gaze, his voice steady and unwavering. You may hold the river now, but its power does not belong to you. It is a force of life, a gift for the people, not a tool for your greed." The king snarled, his eyes narrowing with fury. He raised his hand, and the shadows gathered around him, condensing into a single massive beast, a creature of pure darkness with glowing red eyes and fangs like daggers. It loomed over Naji, its form shifting and writhing as if made of living darkness. But Naji stood firm, his grip on his staff tightening. He could feel the river's power within him, stronger than ever. This was his destiny, his moment to restore balance to the land. With a shout, he drove his staff into the ground, and the river's power surged through him, filling the hall with a blinding light. The water rose up, spiraling around him, forming a shield of pure, sacred energy. The shadow beast recoiled, hissing as it tried to breach the barrier, but the river's light held strong. "Your magic may be powerful, but it is born of greed and darkness," Naji said, his voice echoing with the river's strength. "True power comes from life, from balance and harmony, and that is something you will never understand." The king's face twisted with rage, and he raised his hand, summoning all his magic in one final, desperate attack. The shadows swirled around him, darkening the room, and the shadow beast lunged forward, its claws outstretched. But Naji was ready. He called upon the river's full power, channeling its energy through his staff. With a roar, he unleashed a wave of water that surged forward, engulfing the shadow beast and crashing against the king. The darkness shattered, and the room filled with light as the river's sacred flow washed over everything, purifying the hall and banishing the shadows. King Chima fell to his knees, his magic broken, his power drained. He looked up at Naji, his eyes filled with disbelief and fear. This cannot be," he whispered, his voice barely a breath. Naji stepped forward, his gaze steady and calm. "Your reign ends here. The river belongs to the people, to the land. You will no longer twist its power for your own gain." The king's shoulders slumped, defeated. The dark magic that had once sustained him was gone, and he was nothing more than a man stripped of his stolen power. Naji turned to Obi, who nodded in approval. Together, they had restored the river's flow, but their task was not yet complete. The river needed healing, its spirit still weakened by the years of captivity. As Naji raised his staff, he felt the river god's presence within him, a warmth that filled his heart with hope. He knew that this was only the beginning, that there was still much to be done to restore balance to the land. But for now, the river was free, and the people would soon feel the life returning to their homes.